Thank you for joining the marketing show. My name is Matthew Kilmurry, founder and CEO of apartmentgeofencing.com and hotelgeofencing.com, and I'm your host. We've got an exciting show today focused exclusively on what's next in the digital marketing landscape. So let's dig right in. Joining us today is Trevor Park. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. This is I'm pretty sure my first LinkedIn Live, so I'm hopefully not going to mess it up, and I'll try not to swear.
You're going to do great. Um, Trevor Park, before we jump in, let's do a bio for Trevor. I'd love to read it. So Trevor is the VP of Marketing at DIGIBLE and is based out of Bellingham, Washington. His focus has always been to connect people with one another to provide everyone he works with access to transparent and reliable data, strategic solutions, and world-class support. As a VP of Marketing at DIGIBLE, he continues to work with all departments throughout DIGIBLE provide creative input and strategic solutions to continue to put them as a leader in multifamily. My favorite part is when Trevor is not working, he and his wife are pretty obsessed with the newest addition to the family, little Ella. They love exploring new parts of the Pacific Northwest and trying new tequilas. Trevor also splits his free time working with nonprofits and growing artists to improve their marketing, events, community outreach, and corporate philanthropy programs. So again, welcome to the show, Trevor. And let's jump in with some of our questions that we have prepared. Do you see, so the first one is, do you see any potential disruptors on the horizon for multifamily marketing, especially with emerging technologies like AI, VR, or the metaverse?
I think the first thing, this actually came up in our move to Bellingham. So in the process of trying to find a house to rent, some of the stuff that we were noticing is a lot of the listings were actually fake listings. And so we've been seeing a lot of kind of this fraud increase happening. So like Craigslist, the posts that we saw, half of them were probably just automated, like auto-generated, pulling from MLS images and throwing those into Craigslist and saying that the home's available for rent when really it actually wasn't, and they're just trying to collect a security deposit or like an application fee and like then disappear. And so that part I think is going to be one of the bigger disruptors, is like making sure that your communities are not being duplicated and creating a lot of fraud. Like we have it on our end too with job postings. Anytime we post a job posting, there's like 6 or 7 digital companies that pop up, and people are like, oh, I just got an acceptance letter from here, but it's asking for my bank information. It's I just took this job, but I haven't seen any onboarding stuff. Like, when am I going to get this? And so like that piece I think is going to be a really big thing that we need to stay in front of. And like the auditing process is going to be super huge for trying to track down where there's multiple listings that we're not actually in control of.
You know, I never thought of distrust as a disruptor, but you're so right, because even in the review marketplace, people are becoming less and less believing in the reviews. I mean, if you look at Amazon, everything's a 4.8 star, and there's so much kind of fake reviews out there, beyond what we're talking about in real estate and hospitality, but just in like the products that we look at all the time. There's this like ongoing kind of distrust of what's happening on the web.
Yeah, and AI could be the solution to also validate that stuff. And I think that's where, like, I was watching something on Hulu, and a bunch of political ads came on back to back to back, and I've been kind of following it a little bit closely. And like, obviously you can tell that there's some inaccuracies that are going out there, and it's still getting, like, Hulu's still pushing those ads out, even though there's like factual inaccuracies that have been proven wrong, and yet the ads are still running. And I actually see that as like less of a fault of the politicians, because like they're just trying to get their name out there, but more of a fault of the streaming services and the fact that they're not actually vetting that stuff. And so I think that's also where, when we look at like the listings that are going out, there needs to be some sort of automation vetting process that happens, and like making sure that that stuff is truthful and accurate and not fraud.
Yeah. I would love to see the metaverse actually come to fruition. There was like so much hype around it. I even went to like a metaverse conference and but the reality of it, especially with like the floating bodies and the initial release and the tens of billions of dollars that were spent on it that are now probably it's just sitting in a parking lot somewhere. But maybe Meta was just early. Maybe they were
Yeah.
10, 15 years too early.
Well, did you buy into any of the apartment complexes in the metaverse?
I did not, but I saw like some, of course, some of the bigger national brands were doing some things that I saw, like Wendy's created like a whole experience inside there, and it was a taste of what I think could be, but I just don't think the processing is there. The internet speeds that most people are going to be interacting with their phones and, because they're going to be getting data over not from FiOS lines on their laptop kind of thing. We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
I would love to see us there because I think there's real applications within real estate once we get to that place.
I think so too. Like just even the virtual tour aspect alone, I think is like we're just like touching on the surface of like, virtual tours either live on ILS or they live on a website. They don't live really pretty much anywhere else. And so being able to jump into the metaverse or being able to jump into some other platform to actually go and explore community, to go explore the neighborhood around that community, I think would have a lot of potential to increase more lead adoption.
So next question here, if you could predict one major shift in consumer behavior that multifamily marketers need to prepare for, what would it be?
Well, kind of I have two for this one.
Okay.
The first one is the demand for flexible living arrangements. I can't tell you the number of lease ups that I've gone to in the last few months where it's this is your floor plan. Like this is exactly what you get. There's no adaptation to it. There's no adjustment to it. There's no flexibility in it. And there was one that I went to that really blew me away because when you walk in, it's set up exactly how they want it, the model units, this, that, and the other. But then you can say, it's like, oh, does this have to be here? And he's like, actually, I have the exact same floor plan, but this wall is modular. So it can have all your fitness equipment on it versus your mudroom. Or it could be like your kitchen pantry could actually have all of your stuff open faced, or you can have like pantry doors. And so like they have a lot of customization that they're doing to it. And it's almost kind of like a builder community that you can walk in and be like, yeah, I want
Right.
the dark cabinetry, but I want the light granite and I want the dark sink and I want the walk-in closet, but I want the standing shower, and being able to like kind of pick and mix and match how you want it. I don't know how that works for apartment communities because of the cost that would obviously be associated with it, but there's definitely a demand for it, and people are willing to pay a premium to get that level of customization to make their home feel more to the degree that they want it versus
maybe stay longer because now they have a personal
exactly. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see like the people that are doing flexible living arrangements and like how they can adapt floor plans and amenities to those floor plans, what the resident life cycle looks like how long are they actually renting? Is it still the average like what 3.5 years, or are they going longer? So it'd be interesting to see that. The other side of stuff that I was thinking is like the digital experience is kind of like what we talked about with the metaverse, but also thinking about the move-in process. Like I think a lot about like where Updater is going and where Moved is going, and how they're really making more of a seamless integration to just getting into your home and having all of your systems working. That's something that like we moved into a house, but it's a rental and none of this stuff is set up. I had to call the energy company. I had to call water, sewage, gas. I had to call the cable company. I had to coordinate my mover, all of these things that I had to do without the help of an app because it wasn't tied to like a very easily like single family rental. And I think that piece and like having a better seamless experience that's like from the start of your move-in process to the entire life cycle of living there. I think there's definitely a lot to be said for where that's going as well.
Yeah, so much. Man, how, and then just the positive reviews you would get with that, and the brand affinity for that particular management company, it would be so much to have that whole process baked out. I think for me, the biggest thing I see that's the shift in consumer behavior is using the large language models to like help with their collating of all the research, right? It's like
Mhm.
buying an apartment is such a thing. It's like, you're looking at where you're going to work and this and that, and the school system, and there's lots of like different kind of prices and like fees that go on to that, and where you're going to park or not park. It's just like all of this stuff to try to make a decision, and just being able to throw it all in and say, okay, analyze this for me, and as people start to use GPTs to make their personal lives easier, they're just going to rely more and more as like their own kind of AI personal assistant. And I think the research process is going to be really turned on its head for apartment shoppers.
Well, I was talking with a couple different ILSs to kind of figure out what is coming down the pipeline for that kind of setup. And there's a couple that are working on, basically it's you go into their GPT and you say, I am available to move in this date range. I'm available to tour between these times on these dates. I'm looking for a neighborhood like this. I'm looking for amenities like this, and this is my budget. You enter that in, and then it will shoot you out all of your options. And then you can say, yes, book these three or book them all. And they will schedule your tour and make your entire day around that. So like it would actually plan, like, the Zillow emails that you'll get is like, hey, here's what your weekend plans are. And here's all the open houses happening. That's what is like coming. But I don't know if that's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year. Like I feel like there's still a lot to happen before that, and it's going to require ILSs to kind of open up a little bit more with their API and allow more data syndication to actually occur so that the tour scheduling can be available through that, the listings and amenities can be available through that, the neighborhood information can be available through that. So there's a lot of like partnerships that need to happen before that actually I think will come to fruition. But I definitely see like on the operator marketer side, like getting your SEO prepared so that it's easy for the websites to get scraped, to have your own listings and tour scheduling availability on your website so that can get pulled. Like that's definitely something that they can do to kind of get in front of that. But I don't know if there's going to be a system yet that will be able to actually consolidate that cleanly.
Yeah. Well, whether or not they build the system, somebody's going to be using a tool like that, and so
Yeah.
they could be using ChatGPT, or they could get ahead of it and be like, oh, use our tool that we've created, with OpenAI integration. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they're headed in that direction. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
How can multifamily marketers better leverage data, AI, and automation then to target residents more effectively in this landscape?
Um, I mean, the first thing is just reading the data. I think that's something that is still kind of often overlooked, is like you get the report and then you set the report on your desk, or you keep it in, you check it later. And I like when I worked on the operation side, I was so guilty of that. Like all of my awesome vendor partners would send me like, hey, here's your monthly report for how apartments.com did or how Zillow did or whatever. And it's like, awesome, cool. I'm going to put that on the desk and I'm going to wait.
Yeah, there's not enough time to look at them.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm
You
going to
wanted
wait.
to.
Yeah. But who was I talking with? I think it was at MME last year and talking about like pulling in your weekly operation reports, like your war reports and the occupancy rates and everything, and like being able to track the trends, uploading that to ChatGPT every week. And then you have a running database where you can say, hey, what properties are downward trending right now? And you can just ask it a question. And use like make.ai or whatever, and then those weekly reports will automatically go into your chat GPT, and then you'll get an email summary that comes through and says, hey, here are the 5 properties you probably should take a look at based off of the last 502 reports that have been uploaded this year. Like that stuff, I think, is how you can start leveraging data, is to actually put it into some sort of GPT and start asking it questions. Like I think about what Rent Grotto is doing. And that is the coolest thing I think happening right now with data. Being able to consolidate thousands, millions probably of conversations with residents into one question, and being able to get an output that is so simple to understand and requires no analyst. It requires no like mountains of paperwork. It doesn't require hours of like blockers to actually review that information. So like what Rengrata is doing, I think, is definitely where a lot of companies need to be able to go in actually being able to provide that data back to the operators.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember on being on the operator side, there was data and dashboards everywhere, but I didn't have time to look into
Oh,
them. And
I had 7 Yardi logins. 7. 7 Yardi logins for one person. I
yeah,
can't even think about the regionals. The
yeah,
regionals have 10 times as many as that, because each of the ownership groups that they have to deal with is tenfold that. So it was just like, that part's insane to me. Like to have 7 different Yardi logins, and then to have to download all those reports and then put them together. And this is before like Google Sheets was even like functional. Like you had to download that, upload that to Microsoft Excel, and then consolidate the tabs. And then like in most Yardi reports, you had to break those merged columns for some awful reason. And yeah, it was a nightmare.
yeah. I think, operators, just putting myself back in their shoes, they want people to say, okay, yes, here's all the data, but here's what's working, what's not, what needs to change. And then so I'm like, okay, great. You're looking at it. Awesome. Yes. Recommendation approved. Let me move on with my day. But then you're going to have those moments where you have a high profile property, it's dipping in occupancy, change in ownership, and you need to be able to ask those questions. So to have that, what you were talking about, I love that idea of like, say, hey, just asking the LLM this question and getting back from all of your sources, like a summary of what's going on. So you can walk in those meetings with the asset manager or developer and just be like informed. I think the other thing that I would love to see us make some movement on is like cascading messages. Our cousins in hospitality do this great. They give different messages based on where people are in the funnel. And in multifamily, so much we have that evergreen ad. It's the same ad, whether you're seeing it for the first time, you're on an ILS, you've been to the website, or if you've like drilled down into a floor plan and you're looking at pricing, but you haven't toured yet, it's the same ad that you're going to see on, Google retargeting or social or any one of the number of things. And utilizing the speed at which AI is allowing us to create new ads and new video, new content to like have different messaging, because it's such a long cycle. People can be researching from the time they research to when they tour to when they actually lease. We got like 30 days or more with them. Like, how can we move them along to the next stage with different messaging, but property specific messaging through that property's funnel? It seems so unattainable, because how do you do that across, if you've got 400 properties, how do you do that? But if we can find a way to use AI to speed up the process for us, I think it would be amazing.
I think that's also where it comes into like, websites are our base camp for
Yeah.
all of these communities. Like that is like, those websites have to be adaptable. They have to be open to sharing that data across platforms, because like I think about like what Grady's doing at Resi. Like they are doing it right. A year and some change ago, he was at Cadence Connects talking about how he's modeling his community websites off of the idea of e-commerce. And that thought process of like, if you were on this page, you should be able to see that they're on that page. Not that they're just on your website, but they're on this specific page in this specific fold, and that's what they're looking at. So that data can then go to your digital advertising group and say, hey, this person left on this page. This was the last thing they saw. Hit them with the retargeting ads based off of that page.
Right.
The cookie cutter box websites don't do that. They don't allow you to see, here's what you're doing. And I think that's where we also need to be holding a lot more accountability as to like, hey, I know this is free, but I need to be able to have that data flow in cleanly to this. And that like, yeah, the free websites are great, but it also like you still
Are
need
they free?
to access that data.
Are they free? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a great point. Yeah, is it free if it adds 17 hours extra work to your day just to try and change the headlines?
And is my subscription higher to begin with because it's free? Anywho, that's a
Yeah,
different
yeah,
topic.
that's a great point.
So we're talking about all of this stuff that may change in the future of marketing and how we've typically consumed information as an industry has been through digital thought leadership, but we've been getting together at conferences throughout the year to connect and to share information and be inspired. How do you think the role is going to change in in-person conferences? How do you think they're going to evolve in multifamily over the next couple of years?
Well, I think I've been pretty vocal about my disdain for most conference pricing. I think that part is just insane. I think it's pricing more and more people out. So you're getting less variety and diversity of thought. You're getting a lot of like the ones that have the giant purse strings are the ones that are showing up to all these conferences. And at that point, like they have their own summit, like just go to the summit versus see them at another conference. Like that's where you can get your data if you want just that viewpoint. So I think the micro events are going to be taking off even more so. And like I say, like micro events is like MME that is still a small, very kind of almost kind of exclusive conference. That conference is different in the sense that there are a lot of different viewpoints coming into this and factoring in what they are going to see actually day of the conference. Like what last year it had, or this year, there was like 3 main committees, and each committee had probably 2 or 3 different groups within those committees actually deciding on what the content was, what the structure was, and what the input was. And it wasn't just like a singular voice saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to like push out to people in terms of content. It was actually like a great collaboration and dialogue between operators and suppliers, and actually like that kind of collaboration, I think, is also where a lot of these conferences are going to go to say, I need content like this. I don't see it today. Can somebody build it for me? Or can somebody host an event and do that for me? And I think next year we're going to see a lot more of those pop up because like apartment associations don't really focus on marketing. It's the operations side. So there's fewer and fewer opportunities for people to actually get their marketing insights today, especially when it's like localized, regionalized. Like you have to fly to the West Coast or the East Coast, like, and that's really all you can go. And so like creating more micro events in smaller areas, I think, is where it's going to be really impactful.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thanks for the plug for multifamily East. That's back on in
DIGIBLE sponsoring the
2025.
podcast piece. We're going to be there.
And yeah, and that's, I've been talking to a lot of clients, and their number one thing is because of the cost to go to some of the marketing conferences. It's really the company can only afford to send that like the highest person, the CMO or the VP of digital, right? Or something like that. But they have like really, talented people at that mid-level marketing managers, senior marketing managers, or even directors really that just aren't getting that opportunity. They're getting boxed out. And I think that, those are the future leaders in this industry. They have insights that we may not have yet. And so, yes, like one of the best things about MME is that it's free for people to come. And we do that so that a wider array can come. And then the other piece of it too is you know, the idea of having, you know, a variety of content that people can tap into, and that the service providers like us can join the conversation, because
Mhm.
the typical conference is like, oh, you're a sponsor, like you're over there in the expo, and we'll give people food over there, and you can shout a 30-second pitch at them. But you know, a lot of us come from operator side. We're heavily focused on how to provide solutions. And yes, I am understanding that there's a monetary component to this, but given the opportunity, I think most of us will just enjoy being part of the conversation and not trying to pitch or sell, but just really like inspire ourselves, inspire others. And I think that's what's been really missing,
Mhm.
is the opportunity for smart people to join the conversation, leave the sales stuff at the door, and just like be there to like so we can all grow and learn.
Yeah. What if conferences made it so that if you presented in the last 2 years, you weren't allowed to talk? Like you weren't allowed to speak at a conference if you spoke at that conference for the last 2 years. And so it forced you to bring up that person that works
Yeah.
alongside you to actually speak if you want your company to get recognition. So like I think about like when I was at Rent Dynamics, like Mike, awesome, awesome presenter. And we were at AIM, and there was two speaking opportunities that he was offered up, and he's like, no, I don't want to do both. Like, let's tag in Trevor. And he threw my hat in the ring, and I'm like, cool. That's how you like get more voices out there, is like you don't try and take all of the opportunities every single year. It's like, yeah, bring that other person that's like working alongside of you with you, and like help them get a voice too. And like Mike was really good about that. And I think there's a lot of leaders out there that are also trying to like get their team members up there, but it's just also hard that if their name's not widely known and that's not a recognized name on the uh session application, it might not get picked up. And so
Yeah.
how do we get past that point where it's like the name doesn't have the recognition, but the topic is relevant and the
Right.
topic is the big focus?
Yeah. Because it's so important to elevate people. It's so important to elevate
Yeah.
people. Well, I could talk about this all
Yeah.
day, but we've run out of time. Thank you so much, Trevor, for being a guest
Yeah.
today. And thank you to all of you on LinkedIn for joining in. I hope you join me again. Until then, love the journey, my friends.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor.
Bye.